All right, we're switching over from YouTube to Facebook Live, so we're going to wait a little bit. If anyone's here joining us just yet, hang on. Getting a few things taken care of before we get started on our Stress Less webinar tonight. Are you joining also? Are you going to join?
I am.
Okay, we're in a little bit of a holding pattern as we wait for some people to catch up since we had to switch over from YouTube to Facebook Live. So, hello. More people are going to be coming over. I'm sure we're going to start a little bit later. Give it a little bit of time here for some people to show up, and then we will get started. All right, guys, for those of you that are joining, we had to switch over from YouTube. We had some problems. So we are switching over to Facebook. So we're going to wait just a little bit. We will get started just a little bit later. Thank you. All right, guys, we're starting to get more people on. That's great. For those of you joining, we did try to start on YouTube. We had some technical difficulties, so in a quick reaction, we jumped over here to Facebook Live. I'm not going to say it was stressful, but it might have been a little bit stressful. But we got it going now. So we're going to give it a little bit longer. Probably give it another 4 or 5 minutes until we get started.
See, Pam says hi, Dr. Steve.
Oh, hi, Pam. We get a little more of a crowd going here, and then we'll start here in a little bit, guys.
You're on.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it about another minute or so, and then we'll get started. For those of you just joining, again, a quick reminder: we started on YouTube, but we had some technical problems, so we're giving some people an opportunity to come over here from YouTube onto Facebook. So we're just gonna wait a little bit longer, and then we're gonna get started. Okay, ready? Okay, we're gonna get started, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. This is my favorite topic, stress less. I have been teaching stress workshops for years. This is Dr. Steve Sherry with Discover Chiropractic. I was teaching stress to the San Jose Fire Department for years. I'm going to show you guys a glimpse of what I taught them at the Fire Academy. This is a really interesting topic, and it is completely fitting to be doing this time of year around the holidays where stress is really high around the new year for all of us. So kind of sit back, enjoy. We're going to go through the physiology of stress, and at the end we'll talk about some really interesting approaches on how you can handle stress in your life after we look at the effects of it. So first, we're going to talk about the mission. The mission of this office with Dr. Osborne and I and Dr. Josh is to really make a big change in the world, which is why we spend so much time and effort doing workshops. We have another workshop. Dr. Osborne's teaching in the office right now, actually. We try to get out to as many people as we can, and we count on you guys to share the message to try to change the health of the world that we live in. So when we look at stress, one thing that we'll notice, stress is being called the 21st century epidemic because mainly almost all the conditions that we see people suffering from have ties back to stress. And as I walk you through here, you're going to see the physiological connection between that and a lot of these disorders. So some of the main causes of stress that we see out there are lack of job security, the workload, personal issues, and just in general, just living within the world, especially here in the Bay Area with so many people around. We find that to be extremely stressful for us just as animals, basically, mammals. So as we move through this, first thing you understand is let's do a little discussion about what stress is. And really you hear the term fight or flight. That was really the term that had out there. In fact, the term stress actually was coined by a man named Hans Selye. And it was back in the 1930s when he was the first guy to figure it out. In those days, stress was a term that was used for metals and things. And Hans Selye was studying up in Canada at a university. He was a grad student. And someone had brought him some hormones that they had isolated. And Hans Selye, if you read his book, he talks about how he was super excited. He thought, wow, as a young student, I'm going to discover this hormone. So he took rats and he started injecting these hormones into these rats. And after a while, he took a look at their health, and he was really proud and really happy to find out that the rats that he had injected this hormonal mixture into had all developed ulcers. And he said, wow, I have discovered something amazing. But being a good researcher, he had to do one more thing. And that is he had to go back with a control group. So he went back and took other rats and did the exact same thing again. But some of the rats only got salt water, and others got the actual hormonal mix. When he took a look at all the rats, he found out that they all had gotten ulcers, which basically kind of ruins your research. And most researchers at that point would have just stopped doing the research. But Hans Selye, which is like always the person that takes the next step, really makes a difference, looked back and said, well, what was I doing to these rats? And he had to come to grips with the fact that he wasn't very good with handling rats. He had to inject these rats. He had to handle them on a daily basis. And if you read what he wrote, he talked about how he would drop these rats and he had to use the broom to collect the rats. And he chased the rats around the room. And he actually came to grips and thought, maybe I'm stressing these rats out. So he did another study, which is really interesting. He took rats, put them in cages, and put them on top of the university where they're outside all day, which is very stressful for a rat. He put rats in rooms, left the lights on 24 hours. He put rats in the rooms with cages and let cats walk around. He basically tried to create every environment he could for these poor mammals to be stressed out. And what did he find? Every one of them developed ulcers. Every one of them developed health problems, cardiovascular issues. And he's the one that coined the term stress. He's the grandfather of stress. He's the first one to figure out that our environments, if under stress, can create physiological differences. The definition of stress is the rate of wear and tear on the body as a result of anxiety, worry, or exhaustion from difficult situations. I like that one, but I actually like this one better. It's a hard or difficult, intense experience, which if prolonged, the key word for us is the human body can handle stress on short, high intense things fairly well. It's when it's prolonged. We'll talk about that as we move along. It's when the stresses are prolonged that we get problems. And if they're prolonged, they can cause irritation and or damage to our nervous systems. The answer to avoid stress, well, you have to avoid life. There's no way to avoid stress. And that's the main problem. Most people come to a stress workshop and they sit down and they want to know, well, how do I avoid stress? And the answer is there's no avoiding it, guys. It's going to be how you handle it. Unfortunately, again, we're in a stressful environment here. There's a really good researcher who does a stress questionnaire, which I have at the office if you want to take it. And he talks about how he went around the world having people take the stress questionnaire. And one of the questions on it was, do you push the elevator button more than once when you want to go up the stairs or up the elevator? He said he did it in Africa and he got very low responses. In other words, the stress on the people in Africa was very low. He was doing it in Chicago, and a man came up to him and said, well, that doesn't make any sense. The people in Africa don't have elevators. And he said, you get the point, right? The reason is they don't have stress is because they don't have stoplights. They don't have elevators. They didn't have those stressful things that we live with in every single day. Some of the causes: job, money, relationship, children, junk food, medical drugs. I'll tell you something interesting the fire department in San Jose taught me when I would do my stress workshops. I always thought their job was so stressful. I thought going to house fires, seeing car accidents, seeing people in trauma would be really stressful. Across the board, after doing probably 100+ workshops at different stations around San Jose, almost every firefighter told me, guess what? You know what the most stressful part of their job was? It was living at the firehouse with all the other guys. It was 24 hours of living in there with coworkers. They said that seemed to be more stressful than the calls, which kind of stunned me, actually. So let's talk about stress. What is stress? Well, there's 3 types of stress: physical stress, emotional and chemical stress, emotional and chemical stress. Those are the 3. The trick is there's only one response. The human body responds to all 3 stresses in the exact same way. Whether someone's yelling at you in their face, whether you've been injured, or whether you're ingesting some sort of a toxin or chemical, it turns out our body will respond the exact same way. So let's look at that response and see what happens. When the body is stressed, the first thing that it does is it detects the stimulus, whatever that is. It signals the brain immediately of danger, and the nervous system responds to protect the body. Here's the cool thing about stress. What I'm going to show you is such an awesome system. It's not an unhealthy system. In fact, it's the reason we're on the planet. Without this stress response, we wouldn't survive. The stress response is designed to keep us healthy and keep us alive. What happens and how does it work? Well, watch out for that tiger. By the way, guys, I have the slideshow. All you got to do is ask for it. I'll give you the whole presentation. Watch out for that tiger. If you want to think about stress and how it affects you as a person, think of this. It's designed to protect you from predators. It's designed to keep you alive when somebody, an animal, is trying to attack you and kill you. Tigers are a good example. When a tiger comes up on you, it jumps on you and takes off. Well, what happens to the body? Well, first, let's talk about the nervous system. We have a brain, and we have an autonomic nervous system. That's the part that works 90% of the time without you thinking about it. It runs the organs and tissue in your body, and that autonomic part is cut into 2 parts: the sympathetic, or fight or flight, and the parasympathetic. The fight or flight and sympathetic system has attachments to every organ in your body, just like the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic, by the way, is the feel-good part. All good stuff happens. We want to live with our body in parasympathetic. You know when you're in parasympathetic tone? When you're getting the massage and you're just relaxing and things are great. Your body's really healthy doing that. But we're going to talk mainly about sympathetic. So let's say that a tiger was to jump into this room that I'm sitting in right now, and it was hungry, and it was drooling, and it was looking at me. I would be freaking out. Now, at that moment, if a tiger jumps into any room that you're at, you have 2 choices, don't you? You either run or you fight. Well, most of us would run. But here's the deal. It doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter if you run or you fight, because watch the physiology. And some of you already know this. What do you think happens to your heart rate the minute that tiger bolts in with those eyes staring at you? Well, your heart rate goes up. What about your blood pressure? Blood pressure goes up too. Listen, I've done this talk so many times, nobody ever misses that answer. Everybody knows that when you get stressed, your heart rate and blood pressure goes up. But the question is, why? Why does your heart rate and blood pressure go up the minute the tiger shows up in the room? Well, the reason is this: whether you choose to run, whether you choose to fight, you need muscle activity. And muscles need glucose in the form of sugar for energy, and they need oxygen. And the oxygen and glucose delivery system in your body is the blood. So the body wisely increases the delivery system immediately, increasing blood pressure and increasing heart rate. Now, what's interesting is if you take a look at that, that's kind of the heart attacks and strokes right there. But even more interesting one, those are easy. Watch this one. What happens to your cholesterol levels? Well, the minute the tiger comes at you, by the way, you guys know the tiger represents any stress in your life. That could represent the stress I just went through sitting here trying to get this on live on YouTube. Whenever you get stressed, your cholesterol actually changes in your body. Under stress, the nervous system will change the cholesterol profile in your blood. It'll increase the LDL cholesterol, and it'll decrease the HDL. Now, isn't that interesting? Because most of us know when you get your blood work done, if you have high LDL cholesterol, that's a sign that you're having a heart attack and you're high risk for strokes. Now, why does the body do that? Well, I'll tell you why. because the HDL cholesterol is what we need. Remember, they used to say you don't eat cholesterol. We found out we need cholesterol. It's the precursor for hormones. It's what we use to make hormones. Specifically, LDL cholesterol is what you use to make stress hormones. So doesn't it make amazing sense that the body's going to increase LDL production? It's going to increase the cholesterol production of LDL for stress hormones. HDL cholesterol is what your body uses to make other hormones, like sex hormones and digestive things. You don't need that when you're under stress. Our bodies operate under a really interesting law. It's called the law of energy conservation, which means it doesn't want to do anything it doesn't need to do. So it's not going to be making cholesterol that makes hormones that you're not using. So it's going to increase the LDL. What else happens? This one's my favorite one. The minute the tiger attacks, our blood gets thicker. We get increased clotting factors in the blood. I think that's amazing. Our body knows that that thing has claws and teeth, and there's a good chance what? It's going to bite. We're going to bleed. If we're lucky and we get away from the tiger, it would be a crime if we bled to death. So the blood and the body anticipates this by increasing clotting factors so that if there's any damage to us in the attack under stress, we will immediately clot and stop the bleeding. Here's another interesting one. Our body becomes resistant to insulin. Why? Because glucose is so important to us, and insulin is the one hormone in the body that'll take glucose and store it. You don't want to be storing glucose when a tiger's chasing you. You want all the energy you can get. So it actually stops insulin. It stops production of insulin. It blocks the cells, and it also gobbles up any free floating insulin. That's the real deal. You got to get rid of insulin immediately if you're under stress. What disease is that? That's diabetes. If you go back over what I just said, I just described where heart attacks and strokes come from. I just showed you now where diabetes is coming from. Isn't that interesting? It's not the outside, it's the inside of our bodies that are creating these diseases, it seems like. How about pain? Turns out we get increased sensitivity to pain when we get stressed. Now, the theory is we want to know if an animal scratches us or bites us, we want to know. By the way, in short term, you don't actually feel it. It's later, longer term stress that the body increases sensitivity to pain. I think all of us know that. How about this one? When you're under stress, the tiger jumps at you, your immune system gets shut down. Now, that one bothers some people because they say, well, wait a minute, I'm being attacked. The immune system is there to protect you. And it's true, it is. And it's possible that when the tiger was to attack you, he might have had bacteria and virus in his mouth, and you might get an infection. What the body views that, though, is I'll deal with that later. I'm not worried about that. I'm not wasting energy on the immune system right now. That's for a different day. I'm up for the fight now. Which is why when you get to work and you get sick, don't point fingers at people. A lot of times you got to say, how am I handling my stress? My immune system drops down under stress. We've known that for years, that the immune system drops under stress. How about muscle contractions? They all get tighter. I think everybody knows those tight trapezius muscles under stress get tight. We'll talk about that when we get to talking about how the spine works on this. Those tight trapezius muscles tighten up under stress. We get increased pain. Here's a couple other ones. We decrease fertility. We drop sex hormones. Our digestive gets where we're not digesting food, right? Listen, if someone just ate a muffin and the tiger attacks you, you're going to say, I'm going to let him digest the muffin. I'm not going to digest the muffin, right? So we get digestive problems. Our libidos drop. You guys see all these problems? It turns out this is why it's the huge epidemic that it is. It really changes our physiology under stress. All the things I just told you are amazing. And they're all great when you're under stress. In fact, if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have survived on this planet. You had to have all of those reflexes to take place. Again, they're all designed to take place when you're attacked. Let's talk about this. When a gazelle is out and it's being attacked, a gazelle gets turned away from the herd. It's chased around. The tiger's chasing it. It leaps over the creek. It gets away. It gets scratched from the claws, and it finally gets away. Here's what the gazelle does not do, by the way. After that attack, if it does get away, the gazelle doesn't sit there and go, oh my gosh, whew, why did he pick me out of the group? Like, what do I have, a target on my fur? Like, what is that? I didn't even know that guy, right? It doesn't say that at all. In fact, what the gazelle does, it stands there, takes a few deep breaths, looks around, and thinks, you know what? The grass here is pretty good. I think I'll eat some grass. Which brings up another point. The act of eating is parasympathetic. When you eat, your nervous system goes to the relaxed part of your nervous system. Comfort foods? Makes sense now, doesn't it? You get under a lot of stress. Your body knowingly will have you eat to reduce the stress in your body. Those animals all eat. You know why? Here's why that works. Because if you're eating out in the wild, your brain thinks nothing's trying to eat me if I'm just sitting here relaxing and eating. That's why we all enjoy to have dinner and lunch together. If you're eating, it's parasympathetic. Your brain will switch over to the healthier side of eating. So what are the diseases that come with stress? Well, heart disease, I mentioned, asthma gets triggered, obesity because of the eating, diabetes because of the insulin, headaches because of the dysfunction in the spine where the muscles get tight, depression and anxiety happen. We get GI problems. We mentioned that because of the digestive. We get accelerated aging because the body's sending energy in other places. The body actually stops growing under stress. There are diseases where young children are put under so much stress, they literally stop growing and a hair turns white from it. And we get weakened immune system. You can all see how the whole system is challenged by it. Chronic stress wreaks havoc on our body and our mind. And one of the reasons is a thing called neuroplasticity, which is the brain changes how it functions. For instance, one of the things we've learned is that when babies are in utero, when they're inside of their mother, if the mother experiences high levels of stress, the babies are actually, quote, bathed in stress hormones. The babies come out realizing that the world they're entering is highly stressful. And the nervous system has the ability to change, called neuroplasticity. And their baby will come out, we've discovered, the baby comes out with a, guess what, a really strong stress response. Isn't that amazing? Of course it would be. Doesn't know what's going on. It just knows the outside world is full of stress. So the nervous system inside the baby ramps up in preparation for high levels of stress. How about this one? You can change your nervous system really rapidly, it turns out. People have gone to war, been in foxholes, being shot at for 24 hours, had people die right next to them. That's like some of the most stress you could imagine. White hot stress. And it's been shown to change their nervous system just like that. 24 hours. Changes the way their whole nervous system functions. That's why they come back with so many issues that they have to deal with from being in that. You can also change your nervous system really fast, or you could do it slowly. You could live in a lifetime, like most of us, with low levels of stress, but they're constantly happening, and your body starts changing over to that sympathetic tone. It reminds me of the story about the frog in the pot. If you take a frog and drop it into boiling water, it jumps right out. You put it in a pot and you turn the water up slowly, the frog just sits there until it dies. Many of us are like the frog in the pot. We're slowly cooking under the stress around us in our world. We're not realizing that our nervous system is slowly changing over, using neuroplasticity to become something totally different, responding different to the stresses, overreacting to the stresses. And it's because we haven't dealt with this external stress that's all around us. Back to the stress-related disorders right there. If you let them cook, they're going to slowly eat you up just like that. The other thing you'll hear is stress, by the way. And this one always reminds me, whenever I think of stress, there's what they call the big stressors in life. And if you have one, it's bad a year. If you have 2 or 3, it's really bad. Some of those are illness and disease, death in the family, you lose a job or gain a job, divorce, breaking up, getting a new relationship, injuries. Those are kind of the big ones. If you get 2 or 3 of those in a year, if you move, those are big also. You want to watch for those. You want to watch your friends and family on those too. When you have a family member that's had 2 or 3 of these bigger stressors, those are the type of people you want to wrap around and ask if you can help, because they're enduring a lot of internal stress. So you got to know your stressors, internal and external. We do a lot of self-talk. One of the amazing things about us is that we can actually think ourselves into stress. I go back to that gazelle. That gazelle looked around, right? Looked for what in the world, how was that me? You know who doesn't do that? We don't do that, right? I don't look around after a stressor and just start eating. I start thinking, wait, why me? Why was that guy looking at me? Our brains actually create stress a lot inside as we're living life. Now, I'm going to spend a little bit of time, now that we have the basic idea of how stress works and how it affects your physiology, how it leads to so many disorders, we're going to talk about some of the things to help. What can we do to stop the effects of stress for you and your family? Well, at Maximize Living, we use the 5 essentials. The chiropractic portion we'll talk about nutrition, mindset, exercise, and minimizing toxins. First one we're going to talk about is nutrition. One of the keys is the whole food push. We want that. Inside of all your books that you guys have gotten here at the class, the Align Your Health book, there's 2 different nutrition plans. There's the core plan and the advanced plan. Now, we're not talking about nutrition off tonight, but if you go grab those books, take a look. Both of those plans are great. They're guiding you the right way to eat. Unfortunately, in the way we live, we don't always get all the vitamins and everything that we need. So there are some products that we recommend that help with stress. The multivitamin. There's a men's and women's. They're a little different because men and women have some different things they're looking for in health. Those are a great thing to add to your diet. We have them here at the office. Daily Defense is another one that we recommend. It has a lot of the B vitamins in it to help defend, and Teramic to help with inflammation. Our bodies become very inflamed, and that doesn't help this situation at all. One of the big ones I want you guys to really make sure you're taking, in fact, if all the ones I'm going to talk about here really quick, is the omega-3s, the fatty acids. These are called the essential fatty acids because our body can't produce these. So these are the fish oils. The optimal omega here in the office is really, really good. There's a lab test. If you're really curious, you can take a blood test at home and find out what your ratios are, because it turns out most Americans are really, really bad with this. Again, I won't dive into this too much. There's other classes we do, but let it be known the omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids are really, really important. Again, if it's the only thing you got out of it tonight was making sure your ratios are right, it'd probably be the biggest step you could take to help defend you against some of the effects of stress. B-complex is another product that we have that has a lot of B vitamins that I think is great. You should be taking those. And vitamin C is a crucial vitamin to make sure we have in our system. We have a great vitamin C here as well that we have on the shelf. And then the Pro vitamin C is awesome. Okay, the other one is exercise and oxygen. This is probably another one that's really important that I think most people overlook. It turns out that the simple act of walking has amazing effects on us. When I used to teach the fire department, one thing I would tell them is when you come back from a stressful call, I don't want you guys to just go sit and stew in the stress. I want you to go walk. Turns out that when you move, you fire nerves called mechanoreceptor nerves, motion nerves. They're all over your body, but 50% of them are in your spine. And when you walk, it fires neural pathways up to our brain and makes your brain relax. Again, going back to, like I said, like when you eat, how your body goes, oh, things must be pretty good. Our bodies are wired to say, if you're walking, things are pretty good. In other words, no lion is trying to kill you if you're just walking around. Here's an interesting thing, though. When you're running, our nervous system can be a little more confused, because when you're running, it's almost like your brain starts looking around saying, wait, is something chasing me? So walking, the studies on walking are eye-opening. There's a study out of Northridge down in Los Angeles, and they found out that women that walk 20 minutes a day had 40% less breast cancer just by walking. Because when you walk, your body shifts its tone to parasympathetic. And when you shift to parasympathetic, all the stuff I shared with you about how stress affects your body goes the other way. Digestion goes up. Blood flow goes back to normal. Sex hormones return. Your body just returns normal. It functions where it wants. You want to be parasympathetic. The act of walking is a lot healthier, and exercising is a lot healthier than eating to get there, obviously, because that will do the same thing. So exercising is crucial. We encourage surge for exercising, high intense exercises, but those daily walks. Now, one thing I want to warn you about on those daily walks, if you're going to walk for 20 minutes a day, what I don't want you to do is walk and stew and cook. In other words, I would tell the firemen, you can't go to a bad call and then go for a 10 to 20 minute walk and then process the whole call that you were just on, because your brain can override the effects. Your brain will then say, oh, I must be stressed. We have the ability to do that. We have the ability to not. So when you take your walks, you do literally, and this sounds, it's easier said than done, you've got to get to where you walk and de-stress. You walk and think of flowers and happy things so your body can change the tone to a more healthy tone. Minimize toxins. Again, we're not talking a lot about toxins tonight, but I think if you had come to we did our toxin workshop not too long ago, and Dr. Osborne did a great job up on the stage, really showing all the toxins in our world, all the off-gassing of products. Heard on the radio not too long ago, kind of a startling thing. I had gotten stuck in San Francisco and I had to grab a hotel room, and the only room I found was a smoking room. So I decided to take it because it wasn't that bad. And on the way back the next day after the seminar, there was a researcher talking on KGO, and he was talking about third-hand smoke. I had never heard of that third-hand smoke. He went on to say that in their research, they had discovered that third-hand smoke created the same level of toxicity in children as second-hand. So let's talk about it. First-hand is what you actually draw in. Second-hand is what is actually blown out. Third-hand smoke as he described it, was the smoke and all the chemicals that landed on the furniture, the wall, all the materials, and it just continued to leach out. And they had discovered in his research that children who lived in homes that had third-hand smoke, in other words, not a smoker and not secondhand smoke, just smoke leaching off the couch and the carpet, had the same level of toxicity in their blood as children that lived in secondhand smoke families. Eye-opening. The interview asker, he said, hey, did that mean they have the same health problems? And the researchers said, we don't know yet. The study hasn't been done, but we assume it does. These off-gassings off of carpets and stuff are toxins for us, and they increase the toxin load in your body, and your body responds, again, with the only response it has, which is a stress response. It permanently moves your stress level higher under these toxins. So we can't avoid all these toxins, but limiting them is the actual key here. Organic products, looking at the cleaners you're using in the house, making sure they're of a healthy variety. There's some good little apps on the phones that you can scan them and they'll tell you if they're good or bad. There's some great ideas. You've got to keep your eyes open because there's so many toxins in this world and around in here that it just ramps up your stress load dramatically. Mindset, I mentioned that a little bit. It's how you handle the stress. It's how you process these stresses that are super important. I notice around here driving, the traffic is really bad. And it's easy to get caught up and start thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get somewhere. People are weaving in and out. And I've learned to really take a deep breath and start realizing, I love this comment, it's not my monkeys, not my circus, right? Deep breath, let these people move, and don't let it affect you. And we all know this. When somebody else is stressing out, if it stresses you out, it's going to change your health. We're fighting for our lives here, basically. If you allow your stress to be high, it's always going to be there. It's going to change that physiology. Plan to avoid stresses. It's a great one. Always learn how to look ahead. It'll be a stressful situation. Take a deep breath and realize it's okay. Start learning to take things in stride and move past the ones that are going to be there for sure. Now, chiropractic, how does that fit into this? Well, this is important. I mentioned mechanoreceptors. One of the problems that happens in our spine is all those motion nerves are designed when we're moving to reward you and make you go over. When we get a spine not functioning right, one of the worst things that I see in the office is when you see that full reverse curve up there. That spine's been subluxated, locked up and not moving. They've lost that curve. Interesting study. It was done on 6,000 people. It's a lot of people. They followed them for 6 years. What they did is they went into senior citizen homes. They did surveys of the seniors and they asked them, how much did they exercise? What did they eat? How often did they sleep? All these, and then they followed them for 6 years. And one of the neat things that they did, especially as a chiropractor, is they took people and they just measured how far forward their head was. How far forward was the head? Well, what they discovered was, after 6 years, the people whose forward head posture was the furthest were more likely to die of heart attacks and strokes. Now, a lot of times I'll do these talks and I'll use that study, and I don't have time to explain why. Well, I'm going to do it now. It turns out that when you lose motion in your spine, when your spine gets subluxated, puts pressure on nerves, increases the stress load, and moves forward and doesn't move right, it turns out you're not firing almost 25% of the mechanoreceptive nerves, motion nerves in your body that are designed to reward you when you move and make your body go parasympathetic. The researchers talked about how a damaged cervical spine increased the risk of dying earlier and dying of cardiovascular disease, heart attacks and strokes at a much higher rate. There's a few of those studies out there, and they're really scary when they show you that. Let me show you something else that happens. On the slide presentation here, when you see it, you'll see some pictures of people. I picked out like 5 or 6 of people with their heads forward. If you go online and look at pictures, people who are sad are always here. People on the computer who are stressed are here. I have a picture of a German Shepherd attacking with its head down. Another one walking with its head up. It's interesting that we realize with posture alone, if you're in this position, you're happy. If you're this way, you're sad and depressed. We know that for sure. What happens is our brain actually changes the way it functions by pushing us forward. You know a good example? The other day, our dog got really upset and started barking. His head was down like this as he was heading toward the door, and all the muscles in the back had tightened up and all the fur was up, known as his hackles. It happens to us too. We jut our head forward, we put pressure on our necks, cutting off blood supply and cutting off the nerve flow, allowing stress to just run rampant in the system. So what are the warning signs? Well, the warning signs are this. Before we develop the diseases that we talked about, I talked about heart attacks and strokes. We talked about diabetes. We talked about unable to get pregnant. We talked about all those things that can happen, digestive problems. Well, what's interesting about the human body is there's actually warning signs before the car breaks down, right? Our car has a dash light that comes on that says, warning, you have low oil. The car doesn't blow up at that point. But if you don't react to the oil light, if you keep driving, the car eventually will have a problem. Imagine taking in your car and the mechanic says, what happened? The oil's all burned up. The car's a disaster. Didn't the oil light come on? And you say, well, yeah, the oil light came on 2 years ago, but I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was a normal oil light. That's crazy talk, right? Well, let me show you the symptoms. When you're under a lot of stress, the symptoms, the red lights that the body starts giving out that says, hey, I'm under a lot of stress. I'm not handling it right. Well, guess what number one is? It's headaches. We get neck pain. We get ear infections. We get frequent colds. We get dizzy. We get fatigue. We get constipated. We have sleeping problems. We get all kinds of food intolerances, allergies, depression, numbness and tingling as the body's breaking down. If you read that list, which I'm just reading off here next on my computer, that's basically a body crying out saying, I'm having stress problems. There's like 5 or 6 really good books on stress, and they almost all say the exact same thing. The human body under stress, as it begins to break down, will start crying out with those lists of symptoms almost every single time. And most people just blow it away, or they swing by and get a drug to numb it. I get headaches. I've heard people come in and say, I just get the normal run-of-the-mill headaches. There are no normal run-of-the-mill headaches. That's usually the body crying out saying there's a problem. There's something dysfunctioning in the body when they're getting those. And those are the problems. And I'm going to challenge you guys tonight that we're looking to help those people. And as you sit here and listen to this, and we talked about how stress affects the body in this time of year, how it eats up so many people's health. I have a really good picture. I wish you could see it. And it's titled, Who Do You Know? And it's a picture of about 5 or 6 guys, and they've all got their arms around. They're all happy, and they're all friends, you can tell. And the picture next to it that I put is a person in a hospital bed. And the problem with knowledge is once you know it, you can never say you don't. The information I gave you tonight, there are a lot of people who need to be on this call. A lot of people who need to be on this. There's people that you know, friends and family, who need this information, who are suffering, and the red lights are flashing all over the place, but they don't even realize. They might be taking another pill, another toxic pill that goes into the body that may be creating even higher stress level. So I would challenge you to find those people, share this information, get them into us, get them into somebody if they're not in town. Let us refer them to somebody if they're not close by, and we can take a look. One of the first things we need to do is get those spines back so we reduce that pressure off that neck, which is creating so many extra stressors, and have them start working on these workshops, plugging in so they can get more information about how to help these stress problems that are showing up. Now, let me share with you a couple of things before we wrap up. At this office, we're big on helping people, and we have some really good upcoming things. Recipe night, if you've been in the office, you just saw the table with all the china on it. We're getting ready for recipe night. That's this coming Monday, December 10th. It's going to start at about 6:15. Here's how it works. You come into the office, you get a recipe. These are all holiday type recipes that have a nice healthy swing to them. You make it, you bring it in, and we have like a recipe night / potluck. Everyone gets to try the food. We're going to be talking about healthy food, how to make it, how to get through the holidays eating healthy. I would also challenge you, as I've challenged many patients over the last month, to try to decrease sugar almost down to nothing over the next 4 or 5 weeks. Get through these holidays. That's the challenge without doing that. Now, another great thing that we're having in the office is what's called the Basket Brigade. The Basket Brigade is something we do every year this time of year, and it's for needy families. I need 2 things from you. We do a $40 donation that helps us buy the baskets, put them together, and put food together for needy families. So I need those donations for you. When you come in, please help us out. I'd really appreciate it. But even bigger than that, guess what we really need? We also need the needy families. So if you know friends or family who are in need, please give us those names and that information. What we do is we put that money together and we get those baskets and we go and drop them off on their front doors for the holidays. We try to share that with them. So help us out with a donation, please, and help us out with finding the families that need those things. Don't forget the 5 Essential class. If you haven't come to the 5 Essential class, please come. December 5th, that's tomorrow night, and also on the 19th. Every 2 weeks, Dr. Josh does it. Those classes are great. He's getting better and better as he just sharpens the knife as he's working those classes. They challenge you. They get you more information. Every class you come to, you'll get a little bit of information. You really need to plug into this office and come to all these classes and just keep learning as we move along. Be sure to join us on Facebook, Discover Chiropractic. Most of you are here. Make sure you friended us on all those. And one more thing that we're doing, which I'm really excited about, we're doing our community outreach program. In other words, we're going to deliver health like a pizza delivery right to you, your friends and family, or your company where you work. That's right. One of our doctors, either I, Dr. Josh, or Dr. Osborne, will come out. We have a list of topics. We're trying to get out in the community, but we need help. There's people who can need us right now that we can't reach. One last story before I sign off. I was a lifeguard growing up when I was about 17 or 18. Had my new red shorts, my t-shirt. I was so proud to be a lifeguard. I couldn't wait to save somebody. I was a little scared, but I thought, boy, when I make a save, it's going to be amazing. And there stood this old lifeguard. You know how you could tell him he was old? His red lifeguard shorts were all bleached from the sun. His hair was beat up. And I remember asking him, I said, how many saves have you made? And he looked at me and he said, you know what? He said, it's not how many saves you made, because if you're a good lifeguard, you'll make no saves. I didn't quite understand what he meant until he explained. He said, if you're a really good lifeguard, you'll stop problems before they happen. You'll get to the child before he gets in the deep end. By the way, that old lifeguard, I think, was about 25 years old. He had just been doing it for a while, I guess. But it was a great lesson in life. You can save a lot of lives, friends and family, if we get to them early and get them healthy lessons now and teach them how to handle stress. It's a lot better to sit with friends with your arms wrapped around them than sitting next to a hospital bed. And that's our mission here at this office, to help as many people as we can. So I'm hoping you can help us out. Plug into this office. Thanks for spending some time with me. I had a great time. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys all here at the office. Have a great holidays. And if there's any questions, by the way, feel free to type them in. We'll answer those right now.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that I have everybody's email, so I'm going to be sending you guys Dr. Sherry's slideshow so you can see it. And go ahead and feel free to leave your email down below as well if you think I don't have it, and I'll go ahead and add you to the emailing list. You should be receiving it by the end of this week. So go ahead and with your questions for Dr. Sherry.
Mm-hmm. All right, looks like there's going to be no questions. I must have answered them all. Awesome. Are you getting one?
Yeah, that one. I hate drinking too much water. Have to sleep. Stopping. How much water should I be drinking?
So someone's asking how much water they should drink. So, you know, back in the other days, they used to say 6 to 8 glasses. They've really changed that more to your weight. One of the things on drinking water that's interesting is when I used to coach athletes, I used to always tell them the thirst mechanism in your brain doesn't come on until you're about 5% dehydrated. The thirst mechanism in your brain won't trigger. In other words, you won't get thirsty until you're 5% dehydrated. Yet, studies have shown that athletic performance drops at 2 to 3% dehydration. So think about that. Your brain won't actually tell you that you're thirsty until your performance has already dropped. So I'd always tell my athletes, you need to drink in advance. If you find yourself thirsty, it's too late. So I try to keep water bottles with me. I try to monitor myself as far as, am I drinking enough? Am I triggering that thirst mechanism? Try to stay ahead of it. It has to do with body weight. You don't necessarily have to drink 6 to 8. I recommend you just keeping water with you and sipping throughout the day. The main thing is to challenge yourself and say, am I finding myself get really thirsty? A lot of us get water through a lot of products, so we don't always have to drink. If it's 6 to 8 glasses, I've seen people try to drink 6 or 8 glasses and they don't realize you're actually intaking quite a bit of water through other sources as well. So that'll answer that one. I don't know. I don't believe on this one they have anything discounted. I don't believe so. The question was, is there any discount on products? on this one. I don't believe there are on this. Okay. Thanks, guys. That was great. I look forward to talking to you more. Have a great night.